I just finished a trip out west, which included a trip to Sedona, Arizona. And we spent 2 days there. And of course we're interested in trying to, look at the much advertised Sedona vortex experience. And as we arrived at the motel, there was a young fellow there who was working at the motel, and as Joan was talking to the owner about the accommodations, I went over to the guy and I said, "Do you know anything about the vortexes?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I've lived right in the middle of probably what they say is the biggest vortex of all." And I said, "How long have you lived there?" He says, "I lived there all my life." And I asked him what his experience was, and he said, "Nothing." He said, "I've never experienced anything." But he said, "It's good for the tourists." And he said that we hear a lot from tourists about experiences, but for the most part, the people here don't know anything about that. So that was interesting to me. Someone living in the center of a vortex in Sedona and finding nothing. Now, we then went down, we took a ride down to the main street of Sedona, but it explained, something to me that was interesting in the vortex activity, and it's good business. Shops abound with T-shirts. You can get T-shirts of vortexes and aliens and all the rest of it, and yeah, it's a good business there. People are walking around with cameras strapped in their shorts, and little jeeps, are heading out to the vortex area and all of this stuff. And a lot of anticipating vortex people are on their way out there. So, I was looking because I just wanted to take an objective look at what this was about, without reaching any conclusions one way or the other, or trying to say this is true or this is not true. And I told you that before the television was on, we had a guide who was he was as deep into this as you can get. And we took 2 tours. We took a morning tour and an afternoon tour. We went into the back country. It's one of the and I'll tell you about this place. It is one of the most beautiful places I have ever been to on the face of the earth. It is a gorgeous place. It really is. I mean, forget the T-shirts and the little aliens and all that stuff. And going out into the country, surrounded by these massive red cliffs, and you can feel the mystery of the Indians and the West and nature itself. I mean, it's absolutely magnificent. Yeah, I don't think you could ever see anything in this particular way. I guess the Grand Canyon or the Rockies in their own way, but in this way, the redness of the cliffs and the mountains, and it's an absolutely magnificent place. It is awesome. Did I feel a whirlpool of energy? No. And we went to all the vortexes. I didn't feel anything. On one tour, I told you about this guide who was, dressed like the Indian, and he did all of this, hey, oh, he's praying out to that. And I'm not knocking that. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, I'm kidding about it because the guy was from New York, but I'm not, he was really sincerely into this, and he was saying prayers to the great God and the Spirit, and I mean, he was standing out on the cliff, and it's like a John Wayne movie. I felt, my God, this is like, Chief Sitting Bull or something up here. It really got to you, because, I mean, this is right where you can see the Indians coming over the cliff and all this stuff. Sat by a water, and he played the flute and all of this stuff. Called out and he took us to a prayer wheel on the top of the mountain, and he placed herbs in our hands so that we might pray and receive from God, and we did, and I'm not knocking that. It was beautiful. It really was. But this guy was into this big time. But he said something to me. I mean, this guy was into shamanism and all this, and he said something to us that touched me too. And we asked him about the vortexes, and he says, I believe that vortexes are everywhere. And I began to become more and more comfortable with the reality of what was going on out there. My advice is, if you wish to go to a place of absolute beauty, if you wish to experience the depth of nature and all of its grandeur, go to Sedona, Arizona. If you wish to experience tourism and gift shops and restaurants and all of that, go to Sedona, Arizona. If you wish to explore the legends of the American Indians in the American West, go to Sedona, Arizona. If you wish to experience energy that whirls and lifts you to heavenly heights, go within yourself. Wherever you are. You don't have to go to Sedona, Arizona. There's a website newspaper called Open Mind Magazine, written by somebody named Hazen Page. And an article is titled The Invasion of the Vortex People. It's written by the residents of Sedona. And the article talks about the fact that tourists are coming to Sedona in tremendous numbers. And it goes on to say, what is a vortex? And she says, standing in one is somewhat like the sensation Marilyn Monroe might have felt with her dress swirling up around her neck. Remember that famous publicity shot from The 7-Year Itch? On the other hand, she says, some people don't feel anything. And that's fine too. Either way, people are wanting to find out for themselves. Are the vortex people delusional, nuts, crazy, weird, or irrational? And she goes on, she says, there are a few strays now and then, but as a whole, having talked with visitors from all walks of life, I'd have to say not. Now listen to this. What they seem to have in common is a deeply religious view of life, though not necessarily in the orthodox sense of the word. Perhaps, most of all, the vortex people experience and awaken to wonder. As they stand in a vortex, not only do they feel the wonder and indescribable beauty of their surroundings, but even more significantly, now she says even more significantly, they begin to feel the wonder and eternal mystery of themselves. So you see basically what the mystery of Sedona, Arizona is all about. It is a fantastically beautiful place of nature. It is filled with the legends of the American West and the American Indians, and totally conducive to meditation. You stand among the red cliffs and you listen to the cries of a hawk or a bird, and then there's silence, and you feel the sun, and you hear the breeze and the wind through the canyons, and an occasional cry of a bird, and then you find yourself going into a meditation. It's just a natural, normal thing to do because the surroundings are conducive to it, you know? I mean, Atlantic City is conducive to fun. A restaurant is conducive to food. Well, when you stand on these cliffs, it's conducive to meditation. And the vortex energy actually wells up within you. But the vortex is the kundalini or electrical energy that is in your own body and travels up your spine in meditation. You have experienced vortex energy in Sedona, but if you're open to it, you can experience the exact same vortex energy in Jersey City. It's not unlike hypnotism, which causes people to see things and feel things that really aren't there. And we talked about that, about the guy down south in Atlantic City. And, you know, by suggestion, he is able to get people to see things that aren't there and feel things that aren't there. It's not there for you and me, but for the person that's seeing and feeling these things, it's really true. And this is what I think I have solved, and I feel so strongly. In Sedona, the hypnotist is nature, the mountains. The suggestion is that there are vortexes of tremendous energy, and if you open yourself to them, you'll have an experience. The rest is totally dependent on the individual. If you wish and experience the combination of being in this magnificent setting, and the suggestion of the power will cause you to experience within yourself the very same thing that many people get from sitting in this room. It's more romantic, of course, being in the mountains. It's more beautiful being in Sedona. But is it any more powerful? No! It's not. And this is the problem. Whether we go from old age, new age, whether we go from fundamental religion to spirituality, we are in the same thing. We're always convinced that you have to go someplace. You have to make a pilgrimage to someplace. Do crystals or rocks have power? Of course not. But if you hold one, and you are told that it does, and you function within yourself that what you are holding has a power, that rock or crystal becomes a hypnotist and your belief becomes a suggestion and something happens. Is there anything wrong with that? No! If that's what helps you take that one step beyond, then take a rock, take a crystal, but at least understand where it's coming from. It's not coming from that thing, it's coming from you. Everything becomes then a suggestion. Everything then becomes a suggestion of power. And if you're open to it, and if you want to accept that what you're holding in your hand has that power, then within you will well up that which is going to carry you, as I said, a step above. Can it work and can it heal? Of course it can. But the healing power is not coming from what you're holding in your hand. It's coming from what you have held inside of your heart, what you're holding in your mind, what you're holding in that electrical energy, which is the true God who is within you. The power is not in the stone, it's not in the crystal, it's not in Sedona, it's not in the rocks, it's not in the mountains. The power is inside of you. A vortex is a whirlwind. It's a whirlpool. It's a circular motion. All the universe is a vortex. I think that, honestly, I think that the word vortex being used to describe that is a little misnomer. I don't really understand. I haven't been able to track in all of my studies any scientific evidence that anything like that exists there. Magnetism, but whirling in the earth, I don't think so. To locate something like that in the ground, I've been unable to document. And I need to document stuff like this, or I don't want to go telling people about it. Okay? Let me ask you a question. Let's say, does Sedona have magnetic power? What if nobody's there? If nobody's there, there's nothing. In order for there to be magnetic power, somebody has to experience it. So somebody has to be there, which means that this so-called vortex, or whatever these things are totally dependent on the human mind being present, observing it. Bingo, we go right back to where we started from. If there's an observer, you create a situation. If there's no observer, it doesn't exist. Does the earth give off energy? Of course it does. You want to have energy? Take a ride up to New York. As soon as you come out the other side of the Lincoln Tunnel and you're in New York City, you feel it. Boom, it's all over you. Well, I'm someplace different, man. I feel it. And I'm not talking about people coming up and washing your windshield. I'm talking about you all of a sudden you're in New York and it's happening, baby. Something's going on here. And where does it come from? Millions of lunatics running around, putting off this energy. But it's there. Yeah. And I felt it in Manhattan, but I didn't feel it in Sedona. So I don't know. So maybe my pilgrimage has to be to New York. Well, that's okay, too. You do not have to go anywhere to experience the energy of nature. You have to go within yourself. Now let me move in a different direction for a moment. What do I think of people going to Sedona or anywhere else to find peace, to find love, to find holiness, to find nature? Let me tell you what I think of it. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I think it's absolutely beautiful. It is bringing forth from within themselves a new communion with nature, a new communion with the animals, a new communion with the traditions of the Indians, a new communion with the very essence of life, with the very essence of God. It is wonderful, and it is a part of Aquarius. It is a part of the new consciousness, and if it takes Sedona to bring that out of people, I pray they all flock to Sedona. So that's wonderful. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm just trying to be reasonable as to what is it? You don't have to take a plane or a train and go anywhere in order to find this energy, because this energy is you. As we were talking to Halusi last night, it is Allah. It is all. You are part of it. You are it. And the same energy that might be in Sedona is inside of you. So I'm not putting this down in any way, shape, or form. I'll go back. Joan and I would love to go back. I don't think I will climb as high in the mountains. I know I won't, because I wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, I thought I would never get back, honestly, but by the time I get to the top, they're going to have to come in a helicopter me down. I'll never get down. Going down was a lot easier than going up. And the only real physical experiences I had in the Sedona was on my back with the Jeep bouncing up and down. But I'm not putting it down, because I extol people, and I would pray to you. Go to Sedona. Go to Alaska. Go to Florida. Go wherever you feel you will find help in becoming one with nature. Go to the bay, go to the beach, go to the woods, go to the forest, wherever it is. Go. It's a wonderful thing. If you can't find it home, definitely go into the mountains or the desert, wherever, and make your peace with nature and the animals and all of life. Go. I'm not knocking that. There's much more that is coming forth in this way, and if Sedona helps bring it out, more power to Sedona. But what we are looking at on the other spectrum that we have embraced all our lives, unfortunately, is once again loose in Kosovo. The power of the mind to sit in Sedona and listen to this guy playing his flute or chanting these Indian chants, and listening to the eagles scream in the sky and the birds and the waterfalls and the mountains and the air. My God, that's beautiful. Or the power of the mind to kill and to hurt and to torture others, as we're seeing in the paper now, not because of what they've done, but simply because of who they are. Did you ever, I mean, a lot of you may be not old enough to remember, but did you ever think you would see a repeat of Adolf Hitler in 1999? You're seeing it. Children, fathers with their kids, mothers, women being raped, and all of this stuff. And what's it all about, Alfie? It's about religion. The greatest evil that has ever set down on the face of the earth. Religion. The one group cannot stand to have the boys and girls and moms and dads of another group living on their sacred land. So they're going to cleanse them from their midst. As Hitler cleansed the Jews, this fellow here in Yugoslavia is going to cleanse the earth of the Muslims. Such is the state of the terrible evil that roams the earth. And this evil that roams the earth hates Sedona and everything connected with it. The terrible evil is religion, and it gives justification for a Serbian Christian to drive from their country an Albanian Muslim just because of who those people are. And then we get involved, or not we, but the United States and other countries get involved, and we're dropping bombs, and we're blowing up children too. Babies, puppies, anybody in sight's being blown to smithereens. We don't know. They sit out in the ocean and they launch a rocket. They don't know. Where is it going to land? Who's it going to blow up? Who's it going to kill? Well, so we've got to do this to stop them from... But don't you see what the web is? How terrible it is? And where does it come from? What do you have to stop? Do you have to stop the bomb? Sure. But what is it you really have to stop? You have to stop religion from creating hate between people. Because that's what it does. It makes people hate each other. Not just dislike each other, hate each other. And you see then how violent it has been throughout history in all parts of the world. Then you get excited because you see more and more people abandoning their Orthodox religion and heading for the mountains of Sedona. I'll climb a mountain to get away from you and this violent system. People can sit in the wilderness and speak with mother and her animal children and make peace. So the question is not why people are experiencing things in Sedona. The question is, why are people going to Sedona in the first place? And to understand that, one has to consider the ultimate vortex, which is called Aquarius. A dramatic change in the electromagnetism that's affecting the world today. Ahmad Halusi last night, I can't say enough about him except how a sweet, nice person, and you're going to just relate to him when he comes down. But he was saying last night, he says, you know, there is no Aquarius. There is no Uranus. There is no Pegasus. These are just names. They're words on a piece of paper. Take all the names away. And there is that which is the all, working, interacting within itself to create and recreate. And that's what's happening now. The spiral magnetism coming off of Uranus that makes the Aquarian age what it is, a time of great change in consciousness. To many people, it opens the gates that they've yearned to have open. That's why people are sitting on top of mountains. We saw when we went out with this guide, we sat by this little brook where this vortex was, or whatever it was, and you see people sitting by themselves all around, just sitting by themselves, not sitting with another person, sitting by themselves and just listening to the water. And then this guy sits down and plays his flute. And I mean, it was very touching, very nice. I understand you can't get that in here or Jersey City, so then it's worth a trip. Certainly it is. Just understand something, that you're not going to Sedona to find a vortex. You're going to Sedona to bring a vortex. You're bringing the vortex with you. And that's wonderful. And you know, just think of that. Okay, it's one thing to sit in the room in Forked River with your vortex, but it's another thing to sit on top of a mountain of the Great Red Cliffs with your vortex. Sure. And so for those who would climb up into the mountains, and for those who would find this within themselves, it's a time to abandon these violent religions. These are evil things. And to find this relationship with this Allah, if you would, this God, if you would, this energy, this universe, if you would, as an individual, alone, by yourself. But to others, it's a need to defend the mother cult at all costs. The idea of communing with nature and finding the true essence of Christ within yourself is evil to these people. They feel that it's got to be destroyed from the minds. I mean, you know, they have some schools where they're going to teach meditation to kids, get kids to meditate for a few minutes to kind of, you know, calm things down. Well, the mothers, and fathers and churches, they protested to these schools that were doing this. This is Eastern cultism. This is devil worship and all of this stuff. You know, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get kids to relax. You're trying to get kids to find peace within themselves, to take them away from the insanity of the real evil, the real Satan that roams the world with a religious garb on called religion. So, even though Jesus said the kingdom is within and you should practice the single eye, people can't deal with that. Because their allegiance is not to Jesus. Come on, let's be honest about it. Their allegiance is not to Jesus. Their allegiance is not to God. Their allegiance is to their cult. And I'll tell you something. There is no more powerful, violent cult that has ever been alive on the face of the earth than Christianity. And so the great struggle for the liberation of the human mind, to bring it from the clutches of religion, is on. And how do you see it? You see it by people climbing mountains in Arizona to get away from the system and feel the inner power of the sacred. And the inner power of the sacred may be a coyote on top of a hill going, whoo, whoo, or a great deer or a great elk. As we were coming back in the train, we were up into the mountains of Colorado or someplace, I don't know where it was, and one of the most magnificent things I ever saw. We went by, and very slow, and they go by very slow in the daytime on the trains, about 25 miles an hour. And I looked and I saw a cabin, an old abandoned cabin up on this cliff on the mountain, and standing right outside the front door was this magnificent elk. Big deer, strong thing, and his head was going like this, as if he was looking to see if anybody was around, because I'm going in that house. So what a difference of that life that I just looked at and these mad people in Kosovo killing little children and raping women and pillaging because of religion. And, you know, can you imagine? You rape women, you murder children, you destroy families, you burn their houses down, then you take a truce for the holy days. We're going to take a truce for Easter. We're going to go to church. There is a confusion which is abounding as people are pulled by the forces of nature, which is God, to a higher place away from the Jerry Falwells of the world. But at the same time, they feel this heavy tug of traditionalism and family wearing on them. You know, you shouldn't be doing this. Leading up to the time of the great liberation. Let me tell you something. I just thought of it. We were getting out of the elevator last night, going to his apartment. Ahmad Halusi said, do you know Nostradamus predicted that the Sky King would return on July 13th, 1999? And Ahmad Halusi said, Nothing that Nostradamus ever said was dated, except that one thing. The Sky King would return on July 13th, 1999. So what is the Sky King? Is it Uranus? Is it the power of Uranus? Is this what we are anticipating? I don't know. I don't know. Nostradamus could have been a complete nut, as far as I know. I haven't a clue. But it's interesting. It was interesting enough that Ahmad Halusi was talking about it as he got out of the elevator last night. And he made a little joke. We thought it was serious. But you know, somebody with a broken English, sometimes he says a joke. He said, well, we come up to the apartment, my wife's brother, because Nostradamus said the Sky King would return July 13th, 1999, so he bought this apartment so he have a good view. And so Joan said, as Joan always does, really? And Ahmad Halusi said, joke, joke. And so now when much of the world is climbing the mountain to get away from Jews and Catholics and Protestants and Buddhists and Muslims and Hindus and vegetarians and fundamentalists and Americans and foreigners and New Age and corporations and any other group that looms its giant head down on the innocent with threats of hell if they don't conform, we search here for words of wisdom that come from a different place in a different time to give us direction. So we should consider that need for contact. You're in a loser. You're in the midst of a loser. You're in the midst of a world of wild people. The other day, Yeltsin from Russia, you know, he's having his loony problems too. He was so ticked off about the Kosovo thing, he said he was going to redirect his nuclear arsenal rockets face the United States. I mean, you know, how can you can't think people are all crazy. And the guy that's not crazy is the guy that's got the bands around. He sits and he plays a flute by a river. What's wrong with that? Listen to the water. Listen to the eagles. Look at the elk and the coyote. What's wrong with that? Remember, we talked about this before I left, but remember that story of Jesus sleeping in the boat at the typhoon, which is a little hard to take. I mean, you know. But they said to him, you know, wake up because... And then he woke up and he stilled the water. But he didn't still the water for everybody. He didn't still the water and calm the storm for everybody. He calmed the storm for those people who became aware and called upon him to stop it. I don't know how many of you are doing the watching meditation, that 5-second meditation. But Joan and I are doing it, and it's the most powerful thing, and in fact I didn't even show Joan yet, but I had suggested this, and one guy wrote me on the internet an email and said, I thought you were crazy doing this. I'm watching myself. He said, I thought that was a little, you know, who am I? But he says, I did it because it's so easy to do, and he says, you know something, it really works. Why? Because you don't have to trust me, you don't have to trust the Bible, you don't have to trust God. You can trust a quantum physicist that when you do observe, you change something. When you make an observation, you change something, you cause something to happen. I hope you're doing it. I hope you're doing it. If you're not doing it for yourself, I hope you're doing it for loved ones or friends of yours who may be sick. And then just track it. Watch what happens. So in the Bible, in Matthew 24, when we look at all of this stuff, it says there's going to be great tribulation, and we've already had that. We've already had the Great Tribulation. You know what's the Great Tribulation? You just think it's your Great Tribulation in Forked River or New York. Just let me tell you, what if you lived at 32 Main Street in Nagasaki or 67 Park Avenue in Hiroshima? You want to talk about tribulation? You come out to water your plants, you take your little dog for a walk, and all of a sudden you hear the drone of a plane, and the next thing you know, an atomic bomb is going off in your backyard. I'll tell you about tribulation. Things have already happened, and they continue to happen as we speak. You see, the point is, when you have this upsetment in the change of the season, like you're having now in Aquarius, don't worry about, you know, astrology. Just forget that. I'm talking about a change of a season of the universe, in the same way that you have a change of the season of the... I mean, do you know the seasons of the Earth? Nobody knows? It's hard. Okay, I'll tell you. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. There's 12 of them. Well, the same thing goes a little bigger up in the universe. There's 12 of them too. Your seasons are 30 days, or your months are 30 days long. That's up there is 2,600 years long. But it's the same thing. Different seasons. Now you're getting ready to put your shorts on and get your bikinis out and go into the pool and all this stuff. That's a season. Then another season will come and you've got to get your fur coat out and all of these things change, and Christmas time and all that stuff. That's a season. Well, it changes up there too. Now you got the season of Aquarius. I'm on how Lucy sat last night, and he's a very sweet, kind of a cute guy. And, you know, he sat there in a chair, and Joan was sitting on the couch, and I was sitting in a chair next to him, and he said, "Me, I'm Aquarius. I'm Aquarius." And Aquarius is the mind. The mind. And so, you know, we're seeing these changes. But the point is, when you are going into a vortex of your own in a harmony with this, then you start to flow and you start to think. You're like you're thinking. You see? You know what's so good about you people? I don't even know if you realize it. You don't want any part of that up there anymore. You don't want to be connected with it. Because you realize how violent and evil it is. And for the children, what life does it bring? But there are people who cannot deal with it and who become violent and enraged by these changes. So you see it inside of yourself. You see people who, you know, well now, as this energy starts to come pouring down upon the earth, it not only affects individuals, but it affects groups, organizations. Listen, if I'm affected by it, and my house is affected by it, that's Joan and I and the animals. Huh? No big deal. But if Mr. Milosevic is affected by it, he's got the power of armies under him. If Mr. Clinton is affected by it, he's got the power of armies under him. Now it's no longer, I'm going to punch you in the nose. Now it's, I'm going to launch missiles, and I'm going to launch missiles on you, and the whole thing. And why? Because there's confusion in here. There's chaos raging in here. And I'm not talking, oh, wait a minute, well, that was always the way it was in Hitler. It's all part of the Aquarian thing. You're only going to go back 50 years. This Aquarian thing started hundreds of years ago. What do you mean it started 100 years? It hasn't even gotten here yet. It's a 1,000-year type of a cycle in which you start to feel the effects of it before it hits here in the same way that you're feeling the spring now. Don't you see can't you sense the fact that summer's coming? Just look at the trees. Little buds coming on the trees. Can't you? So Jesus says you can't discern the signs of the times. Can't you tell? Can't you tell that something's changing in the earth? Certainly you can. Did you ever see, do you know a new assignment this company gave me? And when I got out to Phoenix, they called me and said, we need you to come and come out to the yard and we'll sit on the bench. And when I got out to the yard, the vice president, my boss, Mike Doyle, was there, and the guy's the executive vice president of finance and all that. Mike Talent was there, and my immediate boss, a guy named Rick Palmer in corporate office in Philadelphia, was there. And then there's this young lady there. She had this book. So I sat down, and she handed me the book, and Rick says, we need you to take over the Y2K. Oh, I said, today? So, you know, there's a change. What are they, you know? So I've got this now for California and New Jersey and all of this stuff to take over the Y2K.
And if anything goes wrong, do they blame it on you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When the whole world goes down the toilet, they're going to say, see you, Jew. But you know, the interesting thing was Mike Doyle, who's one of the executive, knows me very well, and you know, from Philadelphia. As I was sitting there and they're handing me this, we want you to take over the Y2K. Mike was standing behind the bench, and Mike comes over and he starts going, oh. And then the other big boss, a guy named Mike Talent, says, wait a minute, this guy is into Ohm and all of this stuff, and he's going to be in charge of Y2K. We're lost. So anyhow, that's my latest deal that I'm into.
What happened just before that with the two fellows that came over?
What happened just before that with the two fellows, I can't even think. Well, they... Oh, yeah, well, I know how to... The one thing I know how to do is is get the right people to do what has to be done, because I am not a Y2K expert, but they had just given me 2 people to work for me. And one of them is really good at this kind of stuff. So I said, bingo, I called him up. And yeah, he had a heart transplant and everything. And, you know, so he was very depressed because he didn't have anything important to do, because nobody in the company wanted to, you know, do anything or cause him any stress with a heart transplant. And I have no problem with that, because if it didn't cause him stress, it's going to cause me stress. So Dick is in charge of this, and he's all excited, and I'm excited because, you know, and so forth. But anyhow, that's the way it is. But what I'm saying to you is that this is part of the chaos and the confusion that they are scared to death about. And we don't really know, you know. But it's not something, it's just part of the evolution. It's the computer age. It's the computer evolution. And one, you can't, you know, they go hand in hand in the same way that the human mind and the chaos and the confusion affect it. So our minds are being prepared for the chaos and the confusion, and our computers are being prepared for the chaos and confusion. It's the same thing. Isn't it strange to you? Or isn't it something you should be thinking about, that the computers now are being worked on to prepare them for 2000? And you and I are being worked on to prepare us for 2000, isn't it? You know, curious? And what are they? That's a computer here, folks. Much more sophisticated than any physical computer, but it's a computer, nonetheless. Right? And so, in Matthew 24, it said that it talks about, one of the greatest statements of the times is contained in Matthew 24:15. And it says, when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken by the prophet Daniel stand in the holy place, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. You know what the word abomination means? It's a horror. It's a horrible thing. It's an abomination. It's a terrible thing. So this is addressed to each one of you individually. When you realize the horror, the abomination, the terrible result of what? Of the desolation of the holy place. The holy place is desolate. Where's the holy place? What did Jesus say? Cast your net to the right side. There are winding stairs going up out to the third, to the right side of the building. The holy place is in the right. It's not physically the right hemisphere of the brain. That's a descriptive word used to try to isolate it from the rest of the physical part. It's in the center, but we're talking about, there's a place inside of each one of us where we have to go, tend the gardens, make sure everything is taken care of, make sure everything. How do we go there? We go there in meditation by visiting it. But when you realize you've never gone there, it's desolate. And why hasn't anybody ever gone there? Because the church said don't go there. The church specifically, and I'm not going to mince words, the Christian church specifically says don't meditate because you'll open your mind to devils. They specifically tell people not to do this, that this is an evil thing, and yet this is the desolation. This is the abomination of desolation. And you find out that the holy place is desolate because nobody goes there. And it says in here in Matthew 24, when you realize and you see the horror of this desolation, then flee to the mountain. Is that why they're going to Sedona? What does it mean? Them that be in Judea flee in the mountain. Judea is the root, Judah. The tribe of Judah is the tribe of light, remember? How many people are in the tribe of Judah? 186,400, the constant speed of light. What's it saying? When you realize that this holy place inside of you has been desolate because you've never gone there, then you are in the tribe of Judah, you are of Judea, you are enlightened. Then go to the mountain. And it means raise yourself, raise up within yourself. Go to the mountain. Don't come down from the mountain. And the good part about being in this room with you is that you do understand that. The good part about being in the room, we had a big crowd last night in New York. The good part about being with those people, and you know what's so great? In New York's a little different than here. It's a lot different than here. I had a guy sitting in the front row with dreadlocks down to practically his you know, big, heavy-set black fellow with dreadlocks down. And at the end of it, he comes up to me, and he walks up, and he's looking down at me and staring at me. Thank you so much. That's the way he talked. This was so beautiful that you understand. And you could hardly hear him talk. He was so gentle. And they realized that the holy place has been desolate, and I gave them the 5-second meditation. How can you lose? Remember, Reverend Ike, you can't lose with the stuff I use. How can you lose? It takes 5 seconds. It doesn't cost anything. I love it. You don't have to join anything. I love it more. You don't have to go anywhere. 5 seconds. It takes you more than 5 seconds to spit. And what do you have to do? Close your eyes. Hold your breath. I'm watching myself. That's all. Close your eyes and hold your breath and say, I'm watching myself for somebody else. That's all. 5 seconds. I do it all the time now. You know? And I see it work for people. I don't know how. I don't know how. Do you know what I don't know? I'm looking at you, and to think like, you eat cookies, and the cookies become part of you. You are a cookie. Do you know what I'm saying? When you eat the cookie goes into your body and gets broken down, and part of the cookie becomes you. You are a cookie. Most of you are vanilla cookies, but you're cookies. You eat chickens and all that stuff, and that's what you are. You're not the person. You're part chicken, you're part roast beef, you're part cookies, and part ice cream. I'm a lot of ice cream up here. That's why I don't go out in the sun too much, because I'm out. And so then he says, those that are in Judea, flee into the mountains. If you find it there, and if you find it in Sedona, please, don't misread. I don't want you going out of here misunderstanding what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with Sedona. It's a magnificently beautiful place. I'm just trying to put it in perspective and just trying to get people to think, you don't have to go anywhere to find what's in Sedona because it's inside of you. When you go to Sedona, you're bringing the vortex with you. But it's a beautiful place to go to. And the people are very friendly to this kind of thing. So you'll be in a lot of good company. And a lot of people who don't understand it. When we were with 2 people on the holy tour, the sacred tour, they didn't really understand it, but they were there. And when the fella said, we were sat at the top of this mountain, they have a prayer wheel in the earth, and it's kind of like this, you know, north, east, south, and west, and then they have a little basket of flowers here, and then they have stuff around. I don't know what the heck it is. And then he says, you march around. He's got you walking around this thing 7 times, and then he says, then sit down wherever you want. And, you know, Joan sat at the north, and I sat at the west, and this guy sat over here, whatever. And then he goes, well, now these 2 people that were with us, they didn't have a clue. But they were there, and they were listening, and so he said he would say a prayer, and then he said if we wanted to pray, we could pray. And Joan said a prayer, and then I said a prayer. Well, these people didn't say, you know, they wouldn't. And I understood that, but they were there. What were these people doing on top of this mountain in Sedona, Arizona, sitting around a prayer wheel with this guy from New York who's now a shaman Indian, whatever the heck he is? What were they doing? That's the exciting part. Wouldn't you rather see them being up there in Sedona at the prayer wheel than being connected with all of this bedlam and this violence and lunacy? Of course. So by all means, go. And I'll leave you with this. And finally in Matthew 24, it says, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and glory. Who is the Son of Man? The Son of the earth. Who is the earth? Gaia. Who is her son? Uranus. Gaia gave birth to Uranus. Who is coming? Who is your controlling planet in the universe in Aquarius? Uranus. What does the word Uranus mean in Greek? Heaven. What did Jesus say? The kingdom of heaven is at hand. The kingdom of Uranus is at hand. What does Uranus do? Uranus spins in an opposite direction than all the other planets. What does it send off? Uranus sends off the most wild magnetism you could ever see. Electromagnetism, which comes off the other planets, is very like a waterfall. Off Uranus, it trails out like a great tail in a spiral effect. Who is the Son of Man? You go home, you open a dictionary, and look in the dictionary, and you'll see Uranus, son of. Huh? Uranus was chased away by Saturn, or Satan. He was chased from Gaia, the earth. And Uranus is now coming to reclaim his bride. And this signals the great Passover from the old way to the new way. And when they asked Jesus, where is this Passover going to take place? He said, when you see the man with the pitcher of water, go to the upper room. When you feel that the inner part of you, which is the holy place, has been desolate, then you've become enlightened. Then flee to the mountain. It's a time that's getting more and more, I'm looking for a word. It's a time that is getting closer and closer and closer and more involved. And you have to look at everything that you see as a potential in this thing that's going on in Kosovo right now. You can't look at it and choose sides as who you think is right. You just look at it as an observer. In the same way that you looked at the scandal with Lewinsky and all of that stuff. How petty that becomes now, doesn't it? When children are being murdered and what the people are doing to the Muslims is butchery and it's Hitlerist, and that's terrible. But then what's the only solution to it? We fire rockets and blow their kids up. See, this is what you don't want to be part of, and you don't want to be part of cultures of this type. So what do you have to do? You have to go to a mountain. You have to find that holy place within yourself. And at the very least, and it's very simple, you watch yourself and you hold your breath for 5 seconds. And do it as often as you can come to do it. I wanted to, before we turn the television off, thank Ethel and Albert for helping us with our girls at home. We have our one lady who's quite old, our Prissy, who, before we went on vacation, she's 23-year-old pussycat. And before we went on vacation, she was stricken with renal failure, kidney failure. And so we had this very nice young doctor, a little blonde girl who said, let's try something. And she had us giving her this liquid under the skin, you know, which Joan and I do 3 nights a week. And Kathy went above and beyond and out of sight with this. Kathy took little Prissy up 3 times a week to make sure that she was taken care of, and then she nurtured our other 2 girls, Becky and Daisy. So when you have friends like that, you don't have friends, you have family, you know. I don't have family that could do this, but I have family here. And so I thank Ethel and Albert and thank Kathy for helping. And I might tell you that Prissy's a 23-year-old cat who's got a mind of her own. She makes you open 5 cans of food before she'll eat the one that she likes. But when she first started on this crisis, her BUN, which is that part of the kidney thing, was up to 74. And the last thing we got, just to report, and Kathy took her up, it dropped down to 47. And her creatinine, which was dangerously high, up at 3.4, dropped down to 2.7. So we may see a 24th birthday yet for this crazy cat, you know. And I think Prissy's telling all of you a message. What you have to do in order to survive all of this chaos is tuck your paws under yourself and just stare out the window. Okay, we'll see you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Welcome again. Last week we spent some time discussing Sedona. Arizona, and the mysteries of the vortex there. And after our visit, Joan and I came to the conclusion that I expressed to you last week, that you do not go to Sedona to find a vortex, but that when you go to Sedona, you bring the vortex with you. In other words, the conclusion that I reached was that what people were experiencing was a beautiful setting, which was conducive to meditation, but that what they were feeling in that beautiful setting was the energy vortex, which is within every human being. That's basically the answer, I think, to what Allah is. Allah, as Ahmad Halusi was conveying to us, is this very thing, that you can't go anywhere to find something. I mean, a person who's in a hospital bed in Toms River is able to find a Sedona vortex right in that bed. See, the Bible puts it in 1 Kings 6:8, and speaking of the temple, it says it went up with winding stairs. It's a vortex in everyone and everything. One of the fellows who took us on a tour of the vortexes and up to the, top of this mountain. The worst thing to me of Sedona was surviving the walk up the mountain. God, the altitude is high, you can't breathe, and this guy's walking up there like, I couldn't keep up with him. So to me, that was the challenge. Once I got to the top, how could you meditate? You couldn't even get your breath. And he's handing out stuff for prayer wheels and all of this stuff. Forget that. You know what I was thinking about the whole time I got up to the top? Now, how in God's name am I going to get down? So anyhow. But in essence, what Ahmad Halusi was talking about, and talking about Allah, is that very thing. If you have to go somewhere to find this source of enlightenment, then it can't, then that source is limited. It is you. You bring it with you. Certainly it's more conducive to meditation in Sedona. It's a gorgeous place. Same thing with the Grand Canyon or a tropical island somewhere. Basically, wherever you are away from your home base is more conducive because you're away from the phone and you're away from friends and so forth and so on. So the vortex then is the same thing what Halusi's trying to explain us to about Allah. It is everywhere because it is in everybody. It's in the atmosphere. And when you go to a place like Sedona and you're in this gorgeous, magnificent place. You come from New Jersey or you come from New York and you wind up in this magnificent, gorgeous place, and people are telling you and suggesting to you that there's this mystical power that comes out of, well, indeed, it is conducive to meditation, and then you're going to have an experience. But the important thing is to realize, Buddha told you, Jesus told you, Krishna told you, Muhammad told you, it's within you. It's within you. It's coming out because you've been open to the suggestion that it exists here, but it exists in this building, it exists in your home, it exists in your bathroom, it exists everywhere. That's the nature of it. If I started a rumor that there was a vortex under this building, people would come here and they would feel it. The darkness, the music. Let's do that. I just come up with an idea. There's a vortex under this building. And if you come here, they'll be lined up. They would line up. Photographers would come. Everybody would come. And you would tell them, oh, yes, I feel it. Well, and people do. There were people in this building who have seen lights, strange lights. They've seen strange faces and all of this stuff. It's from the vortex under Vito's building. But it's not. And you can't do things like that. It's very good. It's very good for business to have something like that. The people that live in... I had one guy tell me, you're wrong about the vortex. The reason the people out there don't feel it is because they're there all the time. That if they weren't there all the time, if they left it and then came back, they would feel it. And I wrote by myself, I can't buy that. No matter how many times you stick your finger in an electrical socket, the result is the same. The common sense has to prevail. Realism has to prevail. Logic has to prevail. But I found a lot of good positive response when I put this on the internet. Overwhelmingly, people agree that you can find your vortex anywhere you are. It doesn't make a difference whether it's Jersey City or as well as Sedona. Naturally, it's much more beautiful to do it in Sedona than it is in Jersey City, but the result is not going to be any different.
But let us address those who still feel that there is a special magnetism at certain places and you can experience the energy. I want to just address that for a minute. After all, the Earth is filled with energy. There's no doubt about that. The question is, if you find a place of great energy, do you really want to experience it? Is it possible that this particular external energy could harm you? I mean, scientists have reached the conclusion that energy from high power lines can cause cancer to children. So you want that energy? That's energy. I mean, that is energy. You want to go find some energy, there's tremendous energy in a thunderstorm. You want to get hit by lightning? There's the ultimate vortex. There's a complete change in your whole personality. There's nothing there but ashes. There's some stuff, there's some energy that isn't suitable for you to sit next to. See, is it good for you? Is it good for life as electromagnetism? Do you want personally to feel the energy of the invisible? The power of nature which cannot be seen but does exist? Well then, do what I said. Go stick your finger in the electrical outlet and you'll find it. It's there. But you wouldn't do that. I know you wouldn't do that. Please don't do that. Because that invisible nature, that invisible power of nature is not good for you to touch. It's not good for you to experience. So then I would say, okay, if these people want to insist that there is energy somewhere and that you should, well, there may be, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is good for you physically or good for your mind. See? The universe has set up everything to accommodate individual needs. The energy inside of your body is perfect for you. Perfect. The energy inside of the earth is perfect for the earth. The energy inside of a tree is perfect for the tree. The energy inside of a hurricane is perfect for a hurricane, but the energy inside of a hurricane would be destructive to you. So you have to realize that. So if you want to feel a vortex, what you want to feel is the vortex that is conditioned for you, not the vortex that is conditioned for a mountain or a thunderstorm or electrical power lines. So you can't say that because there is energy somewhere, you want to expose yourself to it. That energy that people feel has given them enlightenment may have also given them a cancerous tumor or something. Who the heck knows? I don't know. But the energy inside of you is spelled out clearly by Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, Muhammad. It is the vortex. Now, obviously, if you go to the ocean or if you go to the bay or if you go to Sedona or the Grand Canyon, obviously it is a much greater sense because of the awesome surroundings that are magnified to your senses. And that's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. I would go back to Sedona. It's a beautiful place. But you have to understand another point of this too, and this is where I have trouble with religion as well as this kind of stuff. There's a lot of money made in this. There's a lot of money made in it. A lot of people making a lot of bucks off of this stuff. And they want it to be energy out there, so you go and buy T-shirts and little alien figures and stuff like that. But that's not what this is about. Thus, what energy is it that heals and brings you to a higher realm of consciousness, brings you in this relationship with, as Ahmad would say, Allah or God, whatever you want? It's solely the energy within yourself. And it is the vortex of DNA. It is the vortex of that kundalini which spirals up the spine. That's fine for you. That's made for you. That's conditioned and appropriated in just the right frequencies for you. The spiral motion within you is a proper frequency for you to endure. It is a proper frequency that you can stimulate through your meditation. It's not a frequency that's too high. It's not a frequency that's too low. It's conditioned for a human being. But an energy that may be running rampant in some other places, not necessarily that at all. It's a wild energy. I mean, you can bring a dog into your house, and that's fine. That's conditioned, and that's appropriate for a human being. Bring a wolf into your house, you might have a problem. Because one is wild, one is domesticated. One is for human beings, the other is not. So indeed it is wonderful to bring your vortex to Sedona or to the ocean or to the bay or to your bathroom or wherever you want it is so that you can experience that spiral within you. It's a wonderful thing. It is that energy that takes you up the winding stairs via the spine to the holy place at the right side. I don't know if you've ever read about it in the Bible, about the temple, which is your mind, but gosh darn it, I forgot of all the things I meant to do. I didn't do it. But as somebody that can find these Bible passages, first yell out what page it's on, because I forgot to put the pages down. And I always do that, tell you which page to go to. But I want you to see this. We're talking about vortexes. We're talking about the spiral motion of the vortex, which, people find in Sedona or whatever. What I want somebody to find is 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 8 in the Bible. And just yell out what page it's on, because I want you to see something. 1 Kings chapter 6, page 8, verse 8. Anybody can find that? 299? 300? Okay, page 300. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 8. Well, look at that. If you look at it, it's talking about the construction of the temple, and this is what it says about the construction of the temple. Well, let's look at, the door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house. That's referring to the right hemisphere of the brain. And they went up with winding stairs in the middle chamber and out into the third. Those winding stairs is the internal vortex. That's what's being suggested here. That's the middle chamber, the door for the middle chamber is the area of the pineal which leads to the fornix and the hippocampus. The right side is the right hemisphere, and the winding stairs is the vortex which rises up the spine. See? I would suggest to people who feel very strongly about Sedona or anywhere else that you are undercutting the very power of God which is within you when you feel that you have to go someplace else to find the power. I mean, you've been told constantly by every great spiritual teacher that the power, the kingdom, is within you. And then to make yourself say, I've got to go on a pilgrimage, and that's what religion does. They've got their holy places too. People have to go to these places because it's lucrative. But you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go outside of your house. It's within you. If you want to go somewhere, fine, but do it so that you bring the power there. You're bringing your vortex with you. You're going to make that place a better place. Experience your power in different... You don't have to have a change of scenery. You have to have a change of mind. This week, the evolution of discovery took another step in its slow evolutionary procession to the identity of life beyond Earth, and in fact, civilization beyond the Earth. Nature can't do this all at once, or the result, would be obvious. The guns would be booming into space, and the Republicans and Democrats would be appropriating money to put, defense systems in the sky so they can blast everybody out into kingdom come. But we took a big step this week in our mind conditioning process to realize the existence of others in the universe before they make their appearance. You're getting closer and closer and closer to the appearance of the intelligent life that exists elsewhere. Okay? And it's done in a very slow, step-by-step process of evolution, of discovery, so that you get used to the idea. Not necessarily you, because I'm sure that you would, if they walked through the door now, you'd be very happy. But the people up here would, can't deal with this, because much of the religious philosophy of this country is based on the fact that this is the only place where life exists. Well, I gave you a new thing today, stuff number 111. It's from the Gannett News Service. Scientists find a trio of planets. And it says that scientists have discovered a trio of planets orbiting a nearby star, providing the first evidence the universe could be home to other solar systems like our own. I mean, this is an awesome thing here. In 1996, if you remember, a planet was discovered in Andromeda, and it was part of the 8. I think it was number 6 of the 8. And we talked about it then. But now we've evolved to a little higher form. Now we see something each time, we're progressing a little closer to an encounter with life elsewhere. And here we have a situation where they find these 3 planets and make, to the scientists now, a tremendous increase in the chance that other Earth-like worlds might exist, other universes that are like ours. The 3 planets are orbiting the star Upsilon Andromeda, about 44 light years from Earth in our own Milky Way galaxy. Now, if you get your stuff look on page 88, if you have it with you, you'll find that in 1996, a planet was discovered in Andromeda. And it was the 6th one, and it was discovered by Geoffrey Marcy and Paul Butler at San Francisco State University. It was an important planet as part of the story that we pieced together with the 8 planets discovered in 1995 and 1996 that fulfilled the symbol of the 8 given by Jesus to the Coptic Gnostics in the book IEOU, which we talked about at that time. Boots was number 5, the strong man with the sickle coming to set the earth free. And we read in Revelation, at that time about Boots, but when the fruit is brought forth, actually in Mark 4:29, when the fruit is brought forth, immediately he puts in the sickle because the harvest is come. Now remember, this followed the first discovery made in Pegasus, the white-winged horse, which we found is the hippocampus of the brain. And then Al read to you this discovery that they're finding now about cells in the brain, replicating cells, and everything tracks itself back to the hippocampus. Everything brings itself back to the hippocampus because it is the place of the organization and the bringing back of memory. What does it say? It doesn't necessarily store memory, but it is that part of you which causes you to remember when stimulated from another area of the brain. It's exactly what you're waiting for now. You're waiting for the stimulation to come from elsewhere so that you can begin to remember, that you can begin to understand who you are, where you come from, where you're going, and so forth. And so that discovery of the planet in Andromeda in 1996 followed that first discovery which was made in Pegasus. In other words, the hippocampus of the universe, the memory of the universe was stimulated. And that would come first, and then would come the stimulation of the memory of the hippocampus inside, or the Pegasus inside of the human brain, say. And then, so that this would herald a great new time of Passover, a Passover from the old to the new. I mean, I'm watching this war in Kosovo, and the horror of it. Whoever thought we would ever see anything like that again? If you looked at that as what you're seeing with these people now, and put it next to what you saw with Hitler, it's the same stuff. It's people being slaughtered and driven out and cleansed out of this, not because they did anything wrong, just because of who they are. It's the evil of religion. It is the horror of religion. Religion can't deal because these people are sinister, because they have a different philosophy. So you've got to cleanse them. You've got to chase them away. You've got to kill them. Make any difference, little children or whomever. And said, people say, well, you can't get involved in this. This has been going on for thousands of years, and it has. But you see, it's over. The time now that everyone has to adjust to the universe. It's not that America or NATO dropping bombs is doing any better. It's just, you've got the problem. The problem, first of all, is religion, the great evil. And so you have the Christians and you have the Muslims. And in this particular place, the Christians are going to drive the Muslims out, and they are. So they're driving them out of Kosovo because they want it to be an all Christian place, all ethnic place that's pure, doesn't have any of the stain here. So this is nothing new. This happened back in God knows when. They call it the Crusades. The Christians went into Arabia to drive the Muslims out. Only thing is, the Muslims drove them out. As before that, we had the Hebrews trying to drive the Hittites and all of these people out. And so then, just think of all this. When this all started, thousands of years ago, said, well, this has been going on for thousands of years, but it's not going to go on anymore. And it's not going to, and it's not going to be in favor of NATO or Kosovo or anything like that. It's going to be this tremendous change. This is an evil. Whenever you think of how evil it is, take a look at these little children huddled in these wagons being pulled out, screaming for their father who's been killed or whatever. I mean, this is horror. And it always goes on. And why does it always go on? Because there's religion. That's why it goes on. And who's going to apologize? I mean, you can look at wherever you want. I mean, all over the world there are people lying in boxes under the ground, coffins. And there are Japanese soldiers and German soldiers and Italian soldiers and American soldiers and French soldiers and Korean soldiers and Japanese soldiers and all over the world. People lying in graves who never had a chance to experience their families because they had to go and get killed for all this lunacy. Why? Who owes them? There's a debt owed to all of these people who are dead, who shouldn't be dead, or who should have never been killed in their early 20s or teens or whatever it was. And who's responsible? The kings of the earth, the corporations, the governments of the world, all dead people. That's what they have as their heritage. And they've got their flags and they've got their churches and dead bodies in coffins. You could stack them up to the moon, all the people that have been killed by all of this lunacy. And so here it goes again. And so you start all of this stuff, so you're going to have one ethnic or one religion drive out another religion, and then somebody else comes in, and then they decide, well, this is wrong, so we're going to drop bombs on them. Now you got all their little kids and all their little old ladies being blown to smithereens by this other bomb here, and, you know, what is this all about? So it's evil. It's wrong. And whatever happens, whatever nature does to destroy this is what's going to come. And that's why, you know, you'll see this tremendous energy shift now. I mean, this coming Armageddon or whatever, it's already come and gone. I mean, if you're worried about Armageddon, like I said last week, if you lived on Main Street in Hiroshima and looked up one morning when you're watering your plants, there's a plane flying over about to drop an atomic bomb on your town. That's Armageddon. That's already been done. The evils have just compounded themselves. It's a very evil earth. You know, the earth was created by God, Allah, I don't care whatever you want to call it, chicken soup. It doesn't make any difference what you call it. But it was created to have fun. You were supposed to have fun here. You know? You didn't know that, did you? This is supposed to be a place where you have fun. You know? But they don't give anybody a chance to have fun. Between the corporations and the religions, it's fear and stress, fear and stress, fear and stress. So then everybody dies and is carried out. Or they kill them in these types of things here, you know. And it's evil. It is a horror. And so then you get to a point now where the universe begins to realign itself to a revelation of a new consciousness, and all of this evil has to be destroyed. And you say, well, how can that be? These people will never change. Well, they won't change on the basis of anything that you and I can tell them, or on the basis of anything the presidents or the premiers or the popes or anything can do, but they'll change on the basis of what the universe can do, because the universe can and will send an influx of electromagnetism to change all of this and destroy all of this. And it's not going to be easy for a lot of people who want this kind of a horror to continue, because there are people who do. There are people who thrive on this stuff. I can't even conceive that they could continue to do this, and looking at these pictures of these children and these old ladies being carted out and slaughtered and all of these things. But they do, you know. Why? Because they got to protect their cult. Their cult has to survive. This cult has to get rid of this cult. It doesn't make any difference who gets killed. They got to get them out of here. Right? So they never learn, because it's inbred into them. And it's been bred into, it was inbred into each one of you. The first day you went to a church, you were told, you know, we've got the right ones. These people are infidels. These people are wrong. These people are evil. You're going to lose your salvation. Don't meditate. You're going to open your mind to devils. All of this barbaric lunacy that is introduced into the minds of people. And the overwhelming majority of these people believe this way. And so they support this, and they'll raise flags and they'll play patriotic songs in order to defend mother cult at all costs. It doesn't make any difference if kids have to get slaughtered. That's the price they have to pay. So kill the children. Kill the women, kill the old ladies, kill whoever there, protect the cult at all costs. And that's the evil. And that's the evil which has to be destroyed. And that's the evil which will be destroyed. And it will be destroyed by the power of the universe. It will be destroyed by the brutes who will take the sickle and cut away that which is Andromeda, who is the spirit which has been held in bondage by these people all of your existence and all of your lifetime. So Andromeda, you see, the point is, when you look at these types of myths and from mythology and the ancient people, and you look at Andromeda and you see the story of Andromeda, you look and say, well, that's a silly, that's kind of a silly story and so forth, and it's kind of like a fairy tale, something like you'd see at Disneyland. But just ask yourself, would the same people who wrote or who gave you your culture, your basis, your foundation in philosophy, mathematics, science, medicine, astronomy, and so forth, would these people who gave the foundation of culture write things just to be silly stories? Were they superstitious people? Of course not. They were scientific people. So what's this about? What are they writing about? We've already found out that when they wrote about Pegasus, the winged white horse, they made sure that there was a Pegasus inside of you, and so we coordinated the Pegasus with the hippocampus, and we find out there's something now that we're going to be grasping at. We talked about Pluto and Chiron, and there's a lot I'm going to be talking to you about that, thanks to Micheline, which she introduced something new that we're going to share with you hopefully today too. But what I'm saying to you is that when you open a book and you look at mythology, identify the planet, look at the story, and you'll see the implications of what the Earth is going to experience based on what the person experienced. Andromeda was a chained woman. She was chained to this cliff to be destroyed by the beast. All of us have been chained to the cliff to be destroyed by the beast. The beast is the system. The beast is the system that is physically and manifestly destroying the people in Kosovo, killing their women and children and old ladies and old men. That Andromeda then is set free by Perseus. Set free by Perseus, who comes down, cuts the chains. In other words, what does Andromeda signify, and why is it so important that these three planets were discovered in Andromeda, and the planet in 1996 was discovered in Andromeda? Because Andromeda is that which is the spirit or the feminine part which has been in bondage to the system, set free. And remember something, Perseus, who set Andromeda free, was the same one who cut the head of Medusa and set Pegasus free. So these things are not talking about silly stories that, these are wild, goofy stories. It is talking about the action of the universe and the power of the universe and the implications of this power of the universe. And so the discovery in Andromeda has great implications. There is going to be an influx from the universe that is going to break the chains that have held all life in captivity to the system, and they will be set free. The spirit which is the feminine principle, will be set free. You look in Revelation 14:14, it says, I beheld a white cloud, and upon the cloud one like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel come out, thrust in your sickle. The Son of Man is Uranus. Go ahead, go home, open the dictionary, look up the word Uranus. It says son of. Son of who? Son of man. What do you mean? Son of the earth. How? Son of Gaia, the earth. Born out of Gaia. Uranus now is the controlling planet, along with Pluto, causing all of this chaos and confusion, which you feel, which people feel within themselves. And that's why, and it's a very positive thing, why people have to get on a train or a plane or whatever, and they go to Sedona. Fine, go. What are they going there for? Because they're running away from this. Get me to a mountain. Let me go with the Indians. Just get me out of here. That's the shame of it. That's why they're going there, is they're running away from the very things that they say, I'm the holy man. I'm going to help you get to heaven. Just give me your money and shut up and don't say anything, and then after you die, everything will be fine. Bring in the next batch. So we find this emphasis on Andromeda because the three planets were found there. The chained woman, the spirit, the human mind, held in bondage by the religious systems of the world. Perseus freed Andromeda, Perseus freed Pegasus. And now Andromeda and Pegasus are playing a big part in the current astronomical discovery. So don't just look at NASA and Hubble, and they're the ones that are telling us, hey, this is happening. Go back. Look up Andromeda in your mythology book. Find out what's it talking about there. And you'll find a woman, and you'll find that means spirit. And you'll find it's in bondage, it's chained, and then you'll find Perseus sweeping down to set her free. And then you see Boots coming as a discovery with a sickle to set the captives free. It is Greek myth that spins the tales that are connected with heavenly bodies. What did Jesus say in the Bible? In Matthew 13:34, he said that everything, all of these things spoke Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without a parable spoke he not unto. There's the Bible telling you that Jesus never spoke to anyone unless he spoke in a riddle. Never said a word unless it was symbolic. Never said anything literally. Everything he said had to be interpreted because there was a hidden meaning behind it. How do I know? I wasn't there, but that's what the book says. It says he never spoke without a parable. Without a parable, he spoke not to them. He never said a word. Everything that you're reading is a riddle because that's what it says. How many of your religious teachers understand the word symbolically? How many of the religious teachers that you had ever told you that everything that Jesus said was a riddle? None of them. They took it, interpreted it literally. And yet the very book that they were using said it's not literal. Why did he teach symbolically? Because his words were written by the Greeks who taught in myths. The Andromeda, the Pegasus, and all of this stuff is all mythology. What's it mythology about? It's about the universe. It's about the cosmos. The power of the universe, the power of the stars, the power of the energy, if you would. The vortex. You want to have a vortex? Go into a black hole. There's a vortex. Galaxies, constellations, how they affect one another. You want to get into you want to go, you feel the energy of a black hole? Go. That's the end of you. These stories of Andromeda told us what to expect as each of these planets and constellations would appear. Now they're appearing and something big is happening, something significant is happening. And what is being told to you is exactly what's going to come down upon the earth. And all of this horror is going to spread. Certainly it's going to spread. Because of the confusion and the chaos and so forth. Look at the newspaper. Just look at it. And see what's happening on the earth, what's happening in the sky. Look at this Y2K business that's about to come down. That's a serious thing. As I told you when I was out in Phoenix at the conference, and they asked me to go out into this garden in the back, and these executives were back there, and they said, would you have a seat here? And I had a seat, and there was a girl sitting there, a blonde girl, and she hands me a book like this, only it was white. What's this? She said, we want you to handle the coordinating the Y2K. Okay. But they're very concerned about it. In our company, in June of this year, they're going to turn the clocks ahead to 2000 to test all of this stuff. Because if it doesn't work, a lot of bad stuff could happen. Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't a clue what's going to happen. But what I'm saying, isn't it a little bit curious to you that all of this 2000 stuff with Y2K is coming on the heels of the time when Hubble is telling us about the light from supernova, 1987A, going to filter down to the Earth around 2000, and all of these things that we hear about concerning the year 2000, the millennium, and all this. It's all coming right to play with the scientific discoveries that are being made. The other day we were home, and it was very quiet at our house. And it's not always the case, but all of a sudden a knock here, the bell rang, and there stood Micheline, and she was so excited she busted into our house, knocked the dogs over, and she said in her French way, I am so excited. I have found something that I've had in a book for years, and I had to share. And she did, and she went and she got out photocopy, and she had this small book. And she had this book that was written by a spiritual astrologer, and it was relative to Pluto. And it was very interesting. And what was so interesting about it, as I read, she only gave me 3 pages. So I mean, she hung on to the book because she knows that sometimes when I get these books, I sell them in a store. No, she knew how far I would go with this because she knew that it was not my assignment. Astrology was not my assignment, and I was looking from different things from science and so forth and so on. And she knew that, and so she took those parts. But the book was about Pluto, and for those of you who may not be aware, just real quickly, I'd remind you, Pluto is another myth of the Greeks, was known to the Greeks as Hades. To the Romans, Pluto, and retained that name. But it's the same thing. The doorway to the next world, okay? Around February 11th, Pluto and Chiron fulfilled the myth of the Greeks by crossing the river Styx. Now, the river Styx was actually crossing the orbit of Neptune, which is the sea or the water, whatever. And Pluto and Chiron on February 11th made that crossing, and then March 15th reached that pinnacle, that point of the highest and farthest distance from the sun, so that the doorway to the next world was established. The doorway to the next world was opened, you see. Now, what happens then is Pluto and Chiron being in a position to ferry the souls, the spirits, the personalities of all life across the Styx, and either to the left to the place of the howling, you don't want to go there, or to the right, the place of Elysium. So, and I was thinking, my God, how many people now? You turn the television on and see this Kosovo, how many people are there in the place of the howling? Could it be any worse? But what is Pluto? What is the significance? What is Andromeda? What is the significance? The ancient myths are not fairy tales. The word myth does not mean... See, a lot of times people will say, oh, that's just a myth, meaning, oh, that doesn't happen. A myth doesn't mean that. A myth is a story in coded language about something that does happen. If you see that something is a myth, it means it's true, but not in the context of the literal word. You have to break the code of the myth to understand what it's talking about. So these coded messages concerning constellations and planets and the effects that they'll bring forth. To sit here on this planet, whirling through black holes and electromagnetism and violence beyond your wildest imagination, and think that living things are not affected by it, well, it's stupid. That's why religion is absolutely stupid. Because it demeans this. It's always said, no, this isn't true. You can't even consider. I mean, for God's sakes, the mere fact that you have green leaves on the trees says that there's light, electromagnetism interacting with chlorophyll that's causing the cells to be active. So definitely there's an interaction. There's a proved interaction. The mere fact that there's tides in the ocean says that there's an interaction. So here in February and March, we see the movement of Pluto and Chiron. And now here in April, we see the discoveries in Andromeda. And isn't it interesting how quickly they're coming one after the other? This isn't not waiting a long time now to pick up the papers and see things happening. You don't know today, tomorrow, you pick up the paper, you see something else is happening. And now what they're saying is Andromeda's discovery foretells the impending discovery of new worlds and new civilizations, and I believe the people of 4555 who will manifest appearances here on Earth. So I studied the pamphlet that Micheline, not the pamphlet, the book that Micheline brought, because certainly it is as current in interest as today's newspapers, and that's what's so interesting about it. The book that Micheline brought was published in 1977. 1977, but if you will look on page 108 of the stuff that I gave you, you will see something published in 1999 by the NASA Space and Science News, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and the title is Much Ado About Pluto. Recent discoveries of Pluto-like objects in the outer solar system. So there's something going on about Pluto. This was in all the newspapers. It was on television. It was on CBS, ABC, NBC, and all of these things. And yet Micheline comes in with this book about Pluto, which is written in 1977, and whoever wrote that, what's her name?
I'll bring the book.
Okay, whoever wrote the book in 1977 is outlining things that we're actually seeing in 1999 and that Hubble is showing us in 1999. So that's why, to me, it has great credibility. I mean, if I picked that book up before Hubble, I would say, yeah, that's Micheline, that's good, yeah, it's nice, yeah, it's interesting, who knows. You can't do that anymore because the book she brought is before Hubble, and now Hubble is confirming the stuff that the person wrote in the book. So what do you do then? So it has great credibility. See, Pluto has been brought center stage. Andromeda has been brought center stage. Supernova 1987A on the front page of National Geographic, center stage. Pegasus brought center stage by Hubble, by NASA, and by Didier Queloz, who discovered it in Switzerland. Center stage. These are serious things. These are true. So when Micheline says she's excited about this pamphlet, or this booklet she's had for years about Pluto, she is as current as today's news. And the booklet, the book that Micheline had is titled Pluto Discovered. I looked at that. I looked at page 108 of the stuff that we have, Much Ado About Pluto, one written a long time ago, 1977. In fact, you want me to tell you something? That book that she had was written a year before Chiron was discovered. How do you like that? The lady knew about Pluto. The person that wrote the book knew about Pluto, didn't know about Chiron because Chiron wasn't discovered until a year after that book was published. See? Both speaking of Pluto. One from a scientific perspective, NASA. We need that. One from a human energy perspective, the book. We need that. And then to put the two together. But see the difference now we're getting here? The book standing by itself, it's another book. But now the book put together with the NASA and Hubble explorations becomes very, very important. The book starts off by saying something that I think you'll agree with, and it speaks of myths. And it says, the ancients knew those who were illumined would know the inner meaning of myths, while others would think of them as fairy tales. So when I see something like that, I figure somebody agrees with me. I'm going to read the rest of it. The pamphlet speaks of the family, and I'll only be a few more minutes, whom we met in our earlier studies of mythology, the 12 great Olympian gods, one of whom was Pluto. Now Pluto, as it says in the book, had a brother, an older brother. You know Pluto's older brother? In the Bible, you know him as, okay, the older brother of Pluto. Now what happened here? Saturn, who you know in the Bible as Satan, overthrew the one who we would know as the Son of God or Heaven, whose name was Uranus. When Saturn or Satan overthrew Uranus, he separated Uranus from Gaia, who was his mother bride. So then Uranus is gone. God, heaven, the Son of Man is gone. The world then is controlled by Saturn or Satan. See? And in the book that Micheline gave, Saturn represents the law of limitation. See, this is what bothers me so much about Sedona. It's a beautiful place, and everybody in the world should go there. But don't be limited by that. Don't be limited by thinking, oh, I've got to go to Sedona or I can't get enlightened. Baloney. Go to the bathroom. Go to the bedroom. Go wherever you want to go. See? So when Saturn or Satan overthrows God or Uranus, Saturn then rules the earth, rules the humans upon the earth, and that is why Hitler and Kosovo and atomic bombs fall all over the place, and little children and little puppies and people get slaughtered and killed, and nobody gives a damn, or marches with a flag, because there's the ruler. The pamphlet describes, the book, I don't keep calling it a pamphlet, the book that Michelin gave describes the power of Saturn or Satan thusly. Listen to it. Every one of us on earth is under Saturn's dominion as long as we are bound by our personality. As long as we are bound by the human self, we are under the dominion of Saturn or Satan. So how's the Bible sum this up? Saturn, Satan, controls the personality, the left side, the human consciousness. It is Satan. Romans 8:6, for to be carnally minded is death, to be spiritually minded is peace, because the carnal mind, human personality, is enmity against God, Saturn against Uranus. It is not subject to the law of God, neither can it be. It's impossible. So the scripture says we are bound under Saturn's dominion or Satan's dominion, and it says the same thing as the book. As long as we are bound by the personality, for the personality is the carnal mind, and the carnal mind cannot be in communion with God. So we see in the story of Uranus, who was driven away by Saturn, is returning for his bride. Now something is happening. Aquarius, the Aquarian age, has this season has come upon the earth and is coming into the cusp of it, and Uranus is coming back. Uranus is coming back to claim his bride. The Son of Man is coming to claim his bride. That's what it says in Revelation. And Jesus says, and you look up and you'll see the coming of the Son of Man. The Son of Man is Uranus. Uranus twists and turns and sends electromagnetism that is totally different than anything else in the universe. And it's coming back to upset all this. Uranus is coming back and will drive Saturn, or will drive Satan away as the controlling planet. Saturn will no longer control the lives of people. Uranus will start to control the lives of people. And Uranus will turn everything upside down and dump it all over the floor. And it has to be picked up and put back together properly. And then I'll conclude today, because what we're going to do next week, and I want to spend a lot of time with book Michelin, because it's very important. Next week we'll start over and we'll do this right from the beginning. But this way, I'll leave you with this. The book says, in the Aquarian age, now, the personality will become the servant of the real self being the inner light, and take its proper place as a channel through which the power of the essential being can flow. So, then what is being said is, now we get to the point, Uranus comes back. So, see, we're not talking about hocus pocus here. We're not talking about God coming back. We're not talking about Jesus riding on a white horse and all this kind of stuff. We're talking about a change in the season of the universe. Uranus returns and takes the control away here. Not because anybody's grabbing anything. Don't put these personalities. This is power. This is energy. This is a movement of celestial bodies. So Uranus will move back here, and it will be Uranus that is controlling all of this business, and then a complete change in the way we think. And wars and killing children will be abominable. It won't be patriotic to drop bombs on kids, no matter which side you're on, you see. And so this is what we're anticipating. So we're going to spend some time with that, and then we'll get into the implications of the finding of the 3 planets in Andromeda. But I want to spend some time in that booklet, because it says a lot of tremendous things about who we are, what's going to happen. And that's what you want to know. You want to know that something is going on. We understand that. What is going to happen? And this person who wrote this book wrote this 22 years ago. Long before Hubble, long before NASA, and a year before Chiron was discovered, and talks about the implications of Pluto. And the implications of Pluto are awesome now, because as the way Pluto has fulfilled itself, and the myths that were put out by the Greeks. So that's the story, okay? So then we'll see you then, and we'll go on and we'll pick it up from there. Bye-bye.